Okay, welcome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, distinguished faculty. Dr. Ryan Strader, Dr. Michelle Dexter, Dr. Gaetan Chevalier, Dr. Jihan Padma, Dr. Nick Bustos, who's also Dean, and Board Chair, Dr. Rick Delisich, and our distinguished Honorary Dr. Commencement Speaker, Joseph Subiando, and especially graduates and guests. Welcome, everybody. So just a brief opening remark. Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama founded this institute, CIHS, to research and teach about what it is and what it means to be and what it means to grow as a human in all aspects, inclusively, all aspects, and to research into the existence of the subtle body or the consciousness aspect of human beings, and to develop applications of that research for the betterment and advancement of humans and humanity, body, mind, and spirit, ancient, modern, and future, scientifically, philosophically, and spiritually, east and west, internally and externally, solar and extrasolar, known and unknown. It is that emphasis on all aspects inclusively and pushing into the unknown with the intent to apply what we find there for the betterment of humanity and all sentient beings that can be seen as the essence of what is unique about CIHS versus traditional academics. And today's graduates and what they have done exemplify that mission. So now I'm going to introduce our alumni speaker who graduated with a PhD from CIHS in 2017 and has since become lead faculty at CIHS and an accomplished scholar. For example, he gave a scholarly presentation that got rave reviews this June at the conference co-hosted at Yale University. He's published his dissertation research in the Society of Consciousness Studies Journal. He's a licensed MFT psychotherapist, and he is also now Dean of Student Life at CIHS, Dr. Nick Bustos.
Welcome, everyone. So I'd like to start off by offering my sincere congratulations to our graduating class and, of course, their families and loved ones, with the understanding that your hard work, your sacrifice, the all-nighters, the reading, the writing, the discussion, the papers, the projects, and the seemingly endless toil that is required of graduate students, the whole thing, this has indeed been a massive exercise in commitment and the desire to dig deep and to gain new tools, new concepts, new ideas, to refine your thinking, alter your understanding, and come away as a learned scholar, a humble practitioner, and a healer in the most profound sense of the word. You, in essence, have undergone a profound transformation. One whose effects and the outcome might not even be perceptible to you at this time. But through the vehicle of your education, you have planted seeds of great potential. And now with this graduation, those seeds have sprouted. And you are now emerging into the sunlight to take in the rays of scholarship and light, to breathe in new air, and to chart new territory for yourself that was previously only potential. Now it is a reality. And with these steps you are taking today, you are ever closer to realizing your own destiny. What does it mean to be a student at CIHS? As a former student, this is a question that I often ask myself. Perhaps beyond the superficial notions of simply being a student in graduate school with all the trappings of society that it comes with. An examination of its meaning perhaps gives us better clues as to the ultimate significance of our undertaking this path at this school. When I ask students why they chose or why they choose to come here, most often the response is something along the lines of, well, I just knew I had to come. There, in that simple phrase, lies something powerful. And immediately one feels the emergence of a deeper, perhaps more intuitive reasoning process, where we feel guided to our specific locale, not as the result of kind of analytical thinking, but instead as the result of something deeply felt within. And as we know, in the realm of intuition, the impact of it lies precisely in the ineffable noetic quality that accompanies that feeling of just knowing. That feeling is present when we meet our partners, when we see our children for the first time, when we have our first deep meditation experiences, or when we learn of a theory or of a theorist who speaks to us so deeply that what we learn is not so much as taking in something new, as much as it feels like a remembering of what we've always known. It's something inexplicable, self-evident, and powerful. And when we exercise the profundity of this sentiment, this intuition, and we apply it within the context of our lives, we know that we are following the steady, loving rhythm of our own deepest heart. And it is this heart, this symbolic place of wisdom that resides deep within us, that carries a song of truth, a song of life, one that only we as individuals can sing. And indeed, it is a song that is only meant for us to be sung by us. And it is this song that gives genuine color and shape to our lives, and in the context of our education, this allows us the freedom and the flexibility to share ourselves with society in a manner that's primed for maximal impact, maximal healing, and the realization of our maximal potential. So in essence, the choice to follow our heart and come here, this is the choice to commit to ourselves in a very real, very visceral way. We knew we needed the freedom to be ourselves, so we decided to come here. We knew we needed a supportive space of understanding, free from the constraints of an outdated materialist worldview, and so we decided to come here. We knew we wished for a holistic education, one that honors the sacred and the practical, the transpersonal and the biographical, the macro as well as the everyday micro, and so we decided to come here. And again, our choice for this little school, brimming with energy and life and humanity, this reflected a willingness to cast aside the shackles of safety and convention toward the uncharted waters of exploration, the cultivation of self-knowledge and self-realization, and the understanding that true learning, as Plato famously said, involves unlearning, and that facts and concepts alone, they are dead without the humble acceptance of a greater unit of reality in which we all play an important, nay, vital part. To be sure, this has been a wild ride for each of you. But at this point, I can imagine that it's been a ride that has been worth taking. And you're shaking your head, so that's good. It's a good thing. And so you must honor yourselves for how far you've come, for how much you've fought and struggled, for all the sleepless nights, the stress, the coffee, the yoga, the meditation, all the tools that have helped you to make it through. While you all come with goals and aims and aspirations for the future, do not minimize the importance of today, of this day. My own graduation a few years ago was a highlight of my life, and the memories of that day I'll cherish forever. And And I will urge you to savor every bit, to breathe deeply and to quietly acknowledge the loving kindness of your own spirit, which has guided you to this point. And so now you'll be known as CIHS alumni. You will join a decorated group of driven, creative, bright, unconventional scholars who took it upon themselves to heed the call of exploration and scholarship. For this, be proud, because we, as your community, we're so very proud of you. Congratulations again to the graduates and their families and their loved ones and our community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, a brief introduction now. A few years ago, I read an article, actually it was 2013, in the Huffington Post, titled From Liberal Education to Integral Education. I love the article. To me, it expressed very clearly and succinctly in a way as to educate both the general public and the scholarly community just what an integral education is, why integral education is better, more inclusive, more advanced than what we used to call a liberal arts education, why integral education will be the emerging wave of the future, why integral education will also serve to foster a peaceful global society, which is one of the founding missions of CIHS, of course. The article was so good, I felt a little irritated at the author. He was able to so clearly articulate what I had been trying to do for years and hone it in a succinct message about why we here at CIHS use the term integral in the foundational language of our programs. He must have some sort of trick to be able to do that, I saw. I vowed to myself I would figure out how that writer, how he could write something better about integral education, and I would figure out how to write it better and get one up on this author at some point in the future. Time passed, and as the universe seems to conspire to make things in this sort of field happen, something better happened than getting one up on that author. I got connected with him. Early 2017, Joe Subiano came to visit CIHS. He immediately recognized the coherence of CIHS's mission and purpose to his own. And ever since, he has become an invaluable advisor and mentor to us, and is now official advisor to the board and administration for strategic growth of CIHS. He's president emeritus of the California Institute for Integral Studies. During 17 years tenure there, as president there, he took the helm at a struggling small institute, having troubles financially and with their accreditation, grew academic enrollment and public programs by several multiples, building CIHS into the solid leader in integral education that it became. He accomplished that feat by communicating and networking and leading in what I call a naturally integral way. I say naturally integral because I think, like many great integral leaders, Joe came to operate integrally, meaning mind, body, spirit, social, individual, inclusive, and developmentally, naturally, organically from his own being. We see evidence of that, for example, in his early scholarly interest as a young man in the natural philosophy of John Wilkins, a 17th century Anglican leader. Wilkins was one of the few people ever to head both Oxford and Cambridge universities. A transdisciplinary polymath, Wilkins made forefront contributions to fields ranging from religion, the foundations of linguistics, science. He essentially adopted the international metric system. As a political and religious leader in a time of much turmoil, he managed to remain on good terms with leaders on all sides. Wilkins clearly was another, quote, naturally integral leader. Thomas Jefferson was greatly influenced directly by the works of John Wilkins, as surely were other American founders of the United States. And I like to think the key to the success of the American Revolution itself is fundamentally integral nature. But that's a talk for another occasion. Joe Subiando's work on Wilkins are just one area of his many important scholarly contributions to the fields of linguistics and history of English, and especially integral education, for which CIHS awarded him a Doctor of honorary letters for integral education, honoris causa, in 2017. He currently has a publication in press at a very distinguished journal, listing now CIHS as his affiliation, for which we're very grateful. Just this past February, Joe organized a very successful international conference on integral education held at the Gnostic Center in Delhi, India. I was honored to attend and present there about the founding of CIHS according to the principles of founder Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, his principles of integral education. There, we made an important connection with an extraordinary woman who is going to be our new member of the trustee board, hopefully. The board is voting on her now. So please welcome Joseph L. Subianto.
Thank you, Thomas. That is quite an introduction, and I should just leave now while I can. First of all, congratulations. And not only congratulations to you, but congratulations out there for all of the sacrifices and time and the stories you had to hear and all of the annoyances and the good things, of course, that you heard. And so this is a celebration. There's no question. We're celebrating academics, we're celebrating success, we're celebrating perseverance, commitment, dedication, and we're also celebrating family and friends and people who were so helpful in helping us and encouraging us. So it's a real round of congratulations to everyone. I want to pick on two themes, and Dean Bustos picked up so strongly on you are the reason why there is a CIHS. That is why, for this day, this is what it all leads to. All of the discussions and the conversations and all of the administrative decisions that are made over the years, all of that work and all of the vision of the founder was moving into this moment. And it's a very special moment. And you are the honorees, and we are so grateful for you. As the 2019 graduates, you are the reasons for there being a CIHS. And you more than anyone know that CIHS adds to higher education its distinctive integral vision and mission. And that mission and vision have brought you to today's commencement. You have received an education that you could not have received elsewhere. And that is a positive. There's no question. With engaging commitment, CIHS vigorously challenges the assumptions of traditional U.S. higher education, and it expands its boundaries. It's because of an institution like CIHS and its uniqueness that higher education keeps changing and moving. Now more than ever, higher education can no longer maintain its traditional status quo. Emerging educational models have not only become academically legitimate, but they are also changing the landscape of 21st century higher education. This is a movement, and this is an exciting place to be because you're part of the forward movement. I found an excellent example of the shift in higher education this past week as I started preparing a journal review of a book written by Professor John Joseph at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland that was published in the past year by Cambridge University Press. The book, entitled Language, Mind, and Body, A Conceptual History, marks an evolving trend not only in the study of the history of linguistics, but also in the history of any area of study. Professor Joseph bases his long overdue history on a notion of hybrids, as was formulated by Bruno Latour in his 1991 book, We Have Never Been Modern. By hybrids, Latour and Joseph insightfully argue that all entities are a mixture of properties. They argue that no entity exists without others, and every entity is a part of another. In short, nothing is pure, but purely intellectual, physical, or spiritual. Nothing is purely any one of those. And Joseph then presents a history of linguistics that not only recognizes integration, but also honors it. While Joseph's history is not, as he would say, muddle-free, he openly notes that muddles are simply unavoidable to explore critically the complexity of language theories from the ancients to the present. We don't have to be certain about everything. There will always be built-in muddles, and we have to begin to be comfortable with those and recognize that's part of it. Joseph moves away from the traditional either-or thinking of dualism, and he offers a history of linguistics that rejects the third rail of Greek logic, the fallacy of the excluded middle. So, for example, if we consider internal and external aspects as opposites, language is both internal, mental, and external, physical. In short, language, like everything else, is hybrid. It is impure. Everything is part of something else, that whole notion of going back and forth, and that becomes the movement away from the dualism, and that becomes the heart of integral education. Rejecting either-or thinking and positing the excluded middle is the basis of integral education. When Honorees Chowdhury, who was the founder of the California Institute of Integral Studies, CIHS, explored the notion of integral education in his lifelong studies on the work of Sri Aurobindo, whose life dates are 1872 to 1950, he developed the theory of integral education that could be adapted for Western higher education. Dr. Chowdhury maintained that in the complexity of human nature, like in the complexity of the universe, we will discover the dynamic unity of the opposites. He contends, quote, the path leading to this insight, the dynamic unity of the opposites, may be described as integral thinking. And for Dr. Chowdhury, quote, the method of integral thinking represents a dynamic integration of the scientific, phenomenological, and dialectical methods of the West and the self-analytical, psycho-integrative, and non-dual values, disciplines of the East. The blending of the East and the West. In this comprehensive East-West statement, Dr. Chowdhury provides us with a concise summary of integral thinking as he, or perhaps many others, have ever written. An integral education advances an integral thinking that recognizes that every entity, be it perceived as intellectual, physical, or spiritual, is a hybrid. And brings us back to that notion of the hybrids. Now, let's bring this directly to CIHS. First, let's look at the institutional mission. That is what it does. And you, more than anyone, know what it does. To question mainstream views of reality and human existence. Notice the words there, mainstream views of reality and human existence. To explore alternative methods of promoting healing and well-being. And to transform ourselves in order to transform the larger community. So the work that you have done in transforming yourselves at CIHS leads to your ability and gifts and talent now to be able to transform the community. So it starts here. Now, we can interlink these if we wish, and I'm not suggesting that we dare write another mission statement, but one could say, and I think this is the links that are important, by questioning the mainstream views of reality and human existence, we can explore alternative methods of promoting healing and well-being in order to transform ourselves, in order to transform the larger community. So there's that link with all three of those statements and how they begin to do it. And in light of what I've been discussing, let's look at the 7 principles as a vision of CIHS, that is what it seeks to do. What we just talked about is what it does, but what does it seek to do? And of course they're written outside. To promote a society which enhances the integration of science and religion. Notice it's not either or, both. To understand human existence from the total perspectives of body, mind, spirit, the integration we're talking about, the inclusivity. To establish guiding principles for the citizens of a global society, that becomes an outcome. To establish energy medicine, which will prevent disease and promote health. That again is transforming the community, transforming ourselves and the community. To elucidate the mechanism of the correlation between mind and body, and to actualize mental control over body and matter with the resulting better life. Again, notice all the principles, how they move away from dualistic thinking. To systematize scientific and objective meditational practices which will promote spiritual growth. And it's so important because unabashedly spirituality is a part of the institution. And that is something that it wasn't that long ago that the word could not be spoken in higher education. And now, given all the changes that are happening throughout higher education globally, spirituality is now a very integral part of it, and it's recognized. And so much of that was by the early institutions like this who helped form them. To establish a society which satisfies both the individuality, freedom and rights, and socially, morally, and coexistence of human existence. And so the integral thinking. And then lastly, to establish a creative science which researches the mind and the soul as matter. The mind and the soul as matter. Now, CIHS has very much been blessed to have been founded in 1992 by a person whose passion for integral thinking inspired him to create an institution of higher education, CIHS, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, whose life dates 1925 to 2015. I'll drop on a few quotes from his book, Science and Evolution of Consciousness, written in 1978, to show that his contribution to integral education was and remains forward-thinking, and his expansive knowledge of natural science makes his views of integral thinking and the vision and mission of CIHS both distinctive and expansive in higher education. And so when one is founded by an individual whose passion and commitment and intelligence is driven into the areas that we're talking about, and for many of us who find themselves associated with institutions like a CIHS, and there are very few, it is because we are drawn to it. We are almost driven to it. It's a sense that what we are looking for is to be found in very few places, and this institution is certainly premier. Now, just a couple of quotes. He wrote, "In earlier civilizations, such as classical Greece or ancient China, mystics and scientists were neither separate nor antagonistic." That's a huge statement on one thinks about that historically. We've lived through so many periods in which the antagonism has been unbearable. But during the succeeding centuries, he continues, particularly in the West, the two groups diverged to the point where they became mutually exclusive. Unity and diversity, spirit and matter, mind and body were split. And we talk so much about the unity in diversity. And we talk about the relationship of spirit and matter. Another quote I want to draw on because it so highlights what we're talking about. It is impossible to understand the true nature of consciousness by dividing it into pieces to be categorized. The fragmentation of knowledge and learning. And again, moving away from the notion of purity. It must be this or it must be that. Mystics, and the word is not used in an odd or strange way, as if these people do not have a grasp of reality. Mystics insist that to gain true understanding, it is necessary somehow to go beyond the dualism of rational intellect and to unify with the thing itself, to experience it. And that so much ties to what we're talking about and what your education has been built on. He also wrote, mythical traditions assert that the human beings are interconnected and mutually involved in a gradual process whose aim is ultimate realization of the absolute non-dualistic reality. Again, the theme of non-dualism, moving away from the either or, one or the other, but moving to the whole. And last one I want to read is, through my research, he writes, I've attempted to demonstrate concretely, and that's where Dr. Motoyama sets himself apart as a scientist. As he says, to demonstrate concretely. So many of the other institutions that are moving towards integral thinking generally do not have a strong basis in science. They have a strong basis in philosophy or in psychology, but not in the scientific aspect of psychology in the sense that we're talking about, but much more in the area of psychology and counseling. To demonstrate concretely that the human being is more than just a body and a limited intellect. The steps that I and others have taken in exploring the connection between the physical and the non-physical sides of being may be small, I would disagree, but are nonetheless powerful in that they lead inevitably toward the destruction of the limitations that prevent actualization of the human potential. And so pulling together, and you become the beneficiaries of this particular philosophy and approach to education, an education that is not only for today, and we often talk about that, and so often when people think about education, they sometimes tie it immediately to career. But so many of the jobs that are going to exist in 10 or 15 years, and for that matter, the way things change in the dynamic aspect of the market, is that there are jobs that are going to exist next year that never existed before. And so the important aspect of an education is to be able to have people have that broader vision and have that ability to adapt and that ability to move forward. And so thank you for being the people who persevered and moved through this and demonstrated your commitment that there should be a CIHS. And that is as important today as when Dr. Motoyama founded the Institute in 1992. So, congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful lead into what we're going to do now is award the degrees, and Dr. Michelle Dexter is going to come up and help with the awarding of the degrees. Dr. Dexter has been a loyal faculty, elite faculty at CIHS for many years, teaching every quarter, many years, since she was obviously very young, and up here to help us with the awarding of the degrees. So, Milena Bradacevic, dissertation, psychophysiological effects of increasing awareness of non-duality and the natural state in young adults. Doctor of Philosophy in Integral Health. You will help with the foot?
Yes.
And I'll hand this to you. And if you'd like to say a few words, that would be wonderful.
Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you to all of the CIHS faculty, all of the professors that have taught me over the years. Professor Brophy, thank you for everything, all the guidance. It's an extreme honor to be continuing the legacy of Dr. Hiroshi Mutuyama in using a scientific approach to explore the connection between the material and the spiritual. Sorry. The topic of my dissertation was psychophysiological effects of increasing awareness of non-duality in the natural state in young adults, specifically young adults that are experiencing symptoms of depression and anxiety. And my methodology consisted of introducing concepts such as non-duality, the natural state, and the emerging and relational nature of the mind in both educational, experiential, and behavioral ways. And the methodology showed that increasing awareness of non-duality in the natural state contributed to a significant reduction in symptoms of anxiety and depression in young people. Specifically, on average, from a clinical depression stage, they were able to go into the normal stage in only 4 sessions and without medication. This process taught me that it is extremely important to introduce these topics specifically to young adults who seem to be extremely responsive to this new integrated approach and who are looking for new ways to really deal with their mental health development as opposed to treating symptoms of illness. I wanted to say a few more things. Yes, my research has also shown that this methodology contributed to an increase in well-being at both physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels, which again spoke to this integrated nature of the approach. I didn't think that I was going to feel different after my defense, but I actually felt both lighter and more grounded at the same time. It's actually a feeling of, more openness and more drive to really do what I need to do with my degree. So I'm really looking forward to the next steps. I know this is only the beginning, and I thank you all again for supporting me in this and for leading this wonderful institution that I'm so proud to be a part of. It's been a 7-year journey for me, and I changed schools twice, so I'm happy to be home. Thank you.
Dr. Bradacevich's dissertation defense was just yesterday, so congratulations. Okay. Now I'll mention somebody who couldn't be here. Claudia Tupi is awarded the Doctor of Philosophy in Clinical Psychology, and her dissertation, an investigation into the Buddhist concept of anatta. Okay, and now Catherine Gallant, Doctor of Philosophy in Clinical Psychology, dissertation, Early Abandonment, GOT Images, God and the Transcendent in Adults Raised as Judeo-Christians.
first of all, thank you to everybody. I came here from another school also, and it's been an 8-year journey to come here. And I just wanted to say that both of you have mentioned that sometimes people are guided to come here to the school. And I was actually in the process of quitting my PhD from the other school. And I had a dream in which I was in a school, and a man came with a crystal that he was wearing, and he led me by the hand to a school of light. And I crossed the road and I entered into the school of light. And the next day, a friend of mine said, have you thought about looking at the California Institute for Human Science and see if they can transfer you in? I said, I've never heard of them. So I went online, and within a week, I had transferred to the school. And I have been in the school for 4 years. It's been great. I kind of almost had to restart everything from the beginning, but that's fine. And I managed to achieve what I wanted to do, was to finish research that I had started with my master's degree on the effects of early childhood trauma on transpersonal variables, God images, and God appetites in people that have had very severe experiences with trauma as children. And I had already done a quantitative study on this during my master's degree, focusing on physical and sexual abuse. And during the PhD, I did a qualitative study with in-depth interviews looking at the effects of early childhood abandonment on those same variables in people that had actually experienced quite severe abandonment. Okay, it was very interesting. I did several really in-depth interviews that lasted about 2 to 3 hours with each person, and I found not only that there were effects that I kind of expected to some degree between abandonment and a feeling of cosmic abandonment in adulthood, but I also managed to kind of link up all together the results that I found in my master's with what I found in my PhD, and to create a hypothetical theory of trauma and transpersonal. So I was very happy. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, Nikki Samet, Doctor of Philosophy and Clinical Psychology, dissertation, The Impact of Social Media on Millennial Women.
I didn't think I was going to make it here. I'm sure most of us felt that way at some point. But I know Dr. Dexter always encouraged me throughout the process. It has been quite a journey. I was told when I was a child that I wouldn't even get into college, and so graduating with a PhD is definitely an honor. I feel very proud. I'm pregnant, sorry. My research was very close to my heart. I actually chose to study social media on millennial women and how it impacted them due to my own pregnancy hormones, I swear, due to my own challenges with using social media. I found that every time I was using it, I felt really just angst and uncomfortable, and it brought up anxiety and depression. And I was curious if other people felt the same way, and so I really wanted to learn how or who was truly impacted, because some people didn't have the same issues as myself. And the depth that I wanted to go into would have taken me a decade. So I'm glad that I just chose something much more simple. But sticking with the millennial generation and talking with my peers and understanding where they're coming from. And it was a really transformative experience for many reasons, because actually found what I didn't think I was going to find. I thought I was going to be very clear that it was going to be negative. It was going to be a horrible experience for everyone and we should all get off of it right away. But it wasn't like that at all. There's so many blessings and opportunities, and I think that actually comes into what we're talking about today, is this integration of, it doesn't have to be black or white, it doesn't have to be bad or good, it's a blend, and being really mindful of our time on social media, but also just in life in general, just being much more mindful of how we live and how we interact, and living more as an and rather than a but. So it's been a transformative experience, and I'm super grateful to have been part of this community. I will be honest, at the beginning I wasn't sure. I grew up spiritual with my parents both as meditators, and so I learned how to meditate when I was 10. But I always felt like I should be traditional and be in the Western, traditional school system, but I always struggled in that system. So which is probably why I was told I wouldn't get into college. But I truly believe now that I'm here, and through this process, that it's not about if you're good at math or science or whatever it is. It's more about your commitment to yourself and following your passions and being true to yourself, and really just living openly and embracing and exploring what your genuine passions are. So that's what I'm really grateful for. I'm sorry. I just want to thank my husband. He spent hours and days and years through my master's program and my PhD editing every single paper, and dug back into his academic days to edit everything and to listen to everything, and sit listening to my defense presentation for hours, and to my parents who aren't here. My dad's recovering from open heart surgery. He's doing great though, and my dad stayed up till 2 a.m. right before the defense just to hear my whole thing. So just to my parents and to my husband, I love you.
Wonderful, and congratulations that you're pregnant. And all three of the graduates are hopefully psychospiritually and intellectually pregnant as well. Okay, now some remarks from the chairman of our board of trustees. Dr. Richard Jalusich's connection with CIHS's founder, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, goes back even a long time, even before my connection with Dr. Motoyama. Dr. Jalusich was essentially one of the first students at CIHS, and I believe he was the first or one of the first PhD graduates. And he has been lead faculty for many years, and has been dean, and has been board member for many years, and is recently now doing extraordinarily well as chairman of the board. He's also an accomplished professional practitioner and teacher of healing arts as well. Please welcome Dr. Jalusich.
Wow. Well, after listening to you accomplished graduates and Dr. Bustos and Dr. Subiondo, I should stop while I'm ahead. Ms. Saya Araki, family member of Dr. Motoyama, esteemed faculty, executive leadership, and honored guests in the graduating class of 2019. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the 22nd commencement exercise at the California Institute for Human Science. It is a delight to stand here before you today. It's an honor. How do you measure the immeasurable? CIHS founder and first president, Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama, had a vision many years ago of creating an institute of higher learning devoted to understanding the mind, body, spirit of what he termed the whole human being. Dr. Motoyama was a realized yogi, scientist, academician, and philosopher, and left a most enduring impression of his philosophy. In 1992, CIHS opened its doors in Encinitas, and for many years. In fact, I was, as Dr. Brophy said, one of the very first students in September of 1992, when we were located on Vulcan Street in Old Encinitas. But CIHS was always considered the undiscovered gem, boldly occupying a special and unique niche in the blending of science and spirit. CIHS is a graduate school and a research center devoted to reveal to the world community the true nature of the whole human being, and has attracted ardent seekers like these very fine graduates standing before me. And we continue Dr. Motoyama's legacy and philosophy today, honoring the vision and the 8 principles, as Dr. Subiando has said, as you see in the foyer, upon which CIHS is established. The board, executive leadership, staff, and faculty all inculcate these principles as the positive, loving foundation of the purpose of this institute. The board of directors of CIHS is charged with establishing the policies and trajectory of CIHS mission and integral education, including diversity and inclusion, robust philanthropy, and keeping the focus of those 8 principles. If you've not already done so, when we conclude, please take a look at them for yourself. The immeasurable is the spiritual, the energy that exists beyond space and time. Science cannot measure it directly, but can measure its effects, the effects of subtle energy indirectly. Dr. Motoyama had invented a device called the AMI, the apparatus for measuring meridians and associated internal organs, that measures the chi, or the ki rather, the prana, the life force energies of the human being, and establishes an existence of such energies. Imagine to establish something that is invisible. Now there are many such devices that exist to measure the human biofield and energy bodies. The very subject was at one time off limits because of the seeming incongruencies of what it is to have a physical nature and a non-physical presence. We are realizing that these are 2 sides of the same coin. One of Dr. Motoyama's seminal research efforts was to establish the existence of the unique subtle energy body. And now the subjects of biofield research, consciousness studies, energy medicine, and energy psychology are an outgrowth of this understanding of the whole human being and are part of CIHS in-depth offering in courses to its students. The tremendous implications of this higher understanding and integral education applies across all disciplines that CIHS offers: psychology, integral health, and comparative religion and philosophy. And thus, I believe, is what attracted you very fine graduates to this institute in the first place, which we have mentioned. What I like to term a co-creative conscious collaboration, that on some higher level are being said, I have to be there. I did the same thing in 1992. I was living in Point Loma, and in March I moved to Leucadia on Vulcan Street, not knowing why. I said, I have to be here. And then in August, I found in the Reader an advertising, CIHS opening its doors for the first time, classes start in September, and I said, I have to go there. And guess what? It was on the very same street. So I did what you're doing. I followed that intuition, that intangible, sometimes unknowable part that's not just related only to intellectual knowledge, but a higher state of awareness, a higher state of knowing. CIHS is the undiscovered gem, no more. Achieving candidacy with WASC, W-A-S-C means the Western Association of Schools and Colleges, last year towards accreditation, that is, we achieved candidacy last year. We are working diligently to build out the necessary infrastructure to position CIHS as the global leader in integral education of the mind, body, spirit, with the scientific research opening new understanding of our true nature. As Dr. Subiando so eloquently stated, the importance of CIHS mission in the world today. We have established collaboration with Deepak Chopra's foundation Chopra Library for Integrative Studies in Whole Health, formerly known as ESHAR. And Dr. Chopra is now CIHS Distinguished Professor of Consciousness Studies and Well-Being at CIHS. And there are several other collaborations with universities and foundations that we have forged and are now forging to pave the way for CIHS to flourish and attract students, faculty, and researchers from the world community, the entire world. CIHS growth and foundational mission statement attracts the philanthropy of people and foundations in this world who are actively looking for just such an institute as we are, to invest in us, to invest in CIHS, to invest in you, so that when you find a place like CIHS, you realize that it's really something worth nurturing. There are so many that desire CIHS greater presence in the world, and you, the graduating class of 2019, are in the very bold forefront of CIHS greater visibility and presence as a positive force for greater understanding and cooperation. And as Dr. Subiendo so eloquently said, as we develop ourselves and come into higher states of awareness, we thus attract those seekers who are desiring the exact same thing. There is much to do, and I want you all to know, honored guests, that we are committed and dedicated to fulfill this amazing mission in what CIHS represents, and on behalf of the board and CIHS, I offer you my gratitude and congratulations to you graduates. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful, and thank you for mentioning the important collaborations and the WASP effort. And we all thank the Board of Trustees, because it's the philanthropy of the Board of Trustees that makes this continually possible to move forward. Some brief closing remarks. So, given that 67% of our graduates here today are foreign nationals, Canada and Europe, Britain and Italy, I'm inspired to say a bit about how globally diverse CIHS student body is. Dr. Lewis has mentioned how globally diverse CIHS's mission and now connections and collaborations are. CIHS's student body also is. And I'd like to say hello to our visitor, a visitor from Japan, Dr. Motoyama's cousin's granddaughter, Saya. CIHS, we have students and alumni from Australia, Spain, India, Philippines, France, Italy, Tibet, Britain, Mexico, Persia, Iran, Turkey, Malta, Ukraine, and of course Japan. A note on tradition and change. These graduation gowns hark back, of course, to the Middle Ages. At drafty, cold British universities, they wore these to keep warm. We still wear them today in graduation ceremonies, even in the hot sun, as tradition. There's no Marx Brothers movie, a comedy titled Horse Feathers. It's very funny. In the movie, Groucho Marx's character, Professor Hackenbush, gets all the faculty dancing around, wearing these robes, and singing a chorus. Whatever it is, I'm against it. Groucho Marx is buffooning, of course. But the humorous illusion is this: the image of conventional academics is closed-minded, simply repeating a fixed, unchanging, narrow worldview, a negative exclusivity. Whatever it is, I'm against it. He was buffooning. That highlights the essence of what is different about CIHS from conventional schools. The mission of CIHS is about change, inclusivity, evolving worldviews. Whatever it is, if it's real and positive and growthful, we at CIHS are for it, not against it. A favorite quote of mine from one of the first modern Western philosophers to significantly integrate Eastern and Western philosophy, Arthur Schopenhauer, is this: thus the task is not so much to see what no one has yet seen, but to think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. To think what nobody has yet thought about that which everybody sees. That quote says so much about what we strive to do here at CIHS. Subtle energies research, for example, these are a new type of phenomena, or actually age-old phenomena that just don't fit into a conventional materialist worldview. What we need to do to investigate these phenomena is not only repeat old paradigm measures, but to learn and develop new ways of seeing. Psychologist and philosopher William James said, "The world we see that seems so insane is the result of a belief system that is not working. To perceive the world differently, we must be willing to change our belief system, let the past slip away, expand our sense of now, and dissolve the fear in our minds." Dr. Motoyama founded as a mission of CIHS to push the frothy leading edge of sociocultural evolution and to contribute to leading toward a more peaceful global society. A story about Joseph Campbell illustrates this, and as a final closing remark for the graduates. The wonderful American mythologist Joseph Campbell told a story about a conversation he had with his spiritual guru. Campbell lamented to his guru about living in a world with so many terrible things happening: conflict, violence, struggle, suffering. Campbell said his guru leaned in and told him, "The secret is you must say yes to the world and figure out how to live in the world and create positive, uplifting action in the world because the world needs you and your good effort." It's our hope that your time at CIHS has helped you just a little towards such an endeavor. And now, as graduates, it's your task to go out in the world and so lead. Okay, congratulations again. And I want to welcome somebody I forgot to welcome, Mr. Carano, the award-winning architect and friend of Dr. Motoyama, architect of these buildings.